All right, so I'm going to go over y'all's clay procedures. It's not new information per se. I wanted to record this because that way it's a lot quicker to go over the information, and then that way you'll have more time after this video and start actually getting ideas for your project. This is more or less a reminder and a refresher of information that you already have. So I'm not going to make you fill in notes. However, you need to be using your active listening skills. So if you're going to like zone out or try to draw on your hands or play with your ID or whatever it is that y'all are doing other than listening, you're going to miss out on information that you need. At the very end of this video, one of my last slides is actually brand new information for all of y'all. It doesn't matter who you had because nobody used glazes last year. So we're going to talk about the liquid glass. So make sure that you're listening throughout the slides. That way you don't miss information. Now, if you're one of my girls, make sure that you come in with your hair tied up or your nails. They need to be, shortened if possible because it's going to mess up your clay. Make sure that you're being mindful of your outfits, your clothes, your shoes, all that stuff, just because, as we know, clay is messy. So just be very mindful as we start to touch clay tomorrow. Not today, but tomorrow. All right, so kneading or wedging the clay. That is when you roll it up into a sphere. You kind of slam it onto the mat using the palm of your hand and the pressure of your shoulder. You are pushing into the clay. So if you kind of look here at some of these pictures, you can get an idea of the process of wedging. You do not need to wedge for 5 minutes or more because that's going to mess up your clay. A lot of kids get very fearful of the term air bubbles because they think, oh my goodness, if I don't wedge it for a long period of time, there might still be a bubble. But what you're actually doing is you're creating bubbles. So if you wedge it for too long, that's actually not good. So you really don't need to wedge it for a crazy amount of time. The other reason why you don't need to mess around with your clay for a long time is because your hands are going to get warmed up, and that will actually mess up your clay. So if you are working with clay and wedging it for too long, it's going to dry your clay out and it's going to be really hard to work with. So you want to make sure that you are just wedging for maybe like 2-3 minutes tops, and then you just start working on it like normal, okay? So kneading and wedging clay is something you do when you get a fresh piece of clay. And again, you just roll it into a sphere and using the force of your shoulders, not your wrist because you're going to damage your wrist. Use your shoulders, press into the clay, bada bing, bada boom. Get all the air bubbles out. Okay, I want everyone to look at their hand right now. I want you to look at your thumb, and I want you to look at your pinky. Throughout this entire process, make sure that you are referring to your hand. Nothing should be skinnier or narrower or thinner, however you want to think about it, than your pinky. You do not want to make anything thicker than your thumb. If anything is made that's skinnier than your pinky, it's just going to break off. It will not last. Even if you score and slip it, doesn't matter because clay shrinks, and if it's really small to begin with, it's going to crumble, okay? Now, if you look at your thumb, anything bigger than that, I'm probably not going to stick in the kiln if I'm going to be completely honest. It's going to explode 100%. I'm not going to put anything in the kiln that's way too thick. So make sure you're referring to your hand. Even though we all have various size hands, it doesn't matter. It's a very standard measurement that all ceramic peeps use, okay? If you're hesitant about attaching something or making something because you're unsure if it's too thick or thin, just ask me. I'm always happy to help y'all. So make sure that you're referring to your hand first, and then if you want me to check, I got you, okay? So nothing skinnier, nothing thicker than your thumb. Okay, if you had anything that fell off last year, chances are this is the process that you didn't do so well on. You have to make sure that you are scoring and slipping your clay pieces. Now, the reason why it might not have worked is because you might not have scored deep enough into the clay. A lot of kids just kind of very lightly graze the clay. That's not going to do anything. You have to make sure you're really indenting the clay. We've already done our eraser carvings with our Art 2 final. So we already have a familiarity with having, to go carving and going deeper into a surface. That's the same mentality that you should kind of have when you're doing your scoring process, okay? So really indent that sucker. You're going to want to make sure that you do it on both pieces. Again, if you had something mess up last year, maybe this was something you forgot to do. Don't just scratch one piece of clay. The whole point of scratching and adding slip is to create a suction cup process. And so if you're only doing it on one piece, it's not going to work, okay? Add little hashtags, add those scratches. Then you're going to take slip. Slip is going to be in the middle of y'all's table. All it is dried up, watered down old clay. And again, as I had just said, it's going to create a suction cup like texture, technique, whatever, okay? And that suction between the indents and the liquid is what's going to keep your pieces from falling apart. And I love this little chart down here. Beautiful process example. Score, slip, stick, smooth, boom. Okay? A lot of times kids, honestly, they skip all of this and they just take their two pieces of clay and they try to smooth it together. That is not going to work. You can try to cheat the system all you want with clay. It is not going to work. So make sure you're scratching both pieces, adding the liquid slip on top of it, stick it to the piece that you want it to be, and then boom, smooth it all out. Okay, you can use your finger or various tools to smooth it together to make it all look like one piece. Now, this is the important part because this is how we take care of the classroom. Art 1 is doing clay the exact same time y'all are, so it's going to be one big, dusty, slippery mess all at once. Okay? Y'all's clay cleanup procedure is a quiz grade, so make sure that you're taking care of your area, you're putting your stuff away, and you're putting the tools back where they're supposed to be, and it should be an easy 100. Okay? So as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to be fine. Now, when you come into my classroom on clay days, your backpack, your bags, whatever it is you got, water bottles, everything needs to be put up at the front of the class. All right? Your IDs can be tucked into your shirt or you can wrap them around your backpack, but if you ever ask me to use the restroom during clay, you need to make sure that your ID is on. So just keep it somewhere where you can grab it quickly just in case, okay? The reason why I do not want y'all putting your bags by your spot is when we are cleaning up and people are walking around with their projects, we don't want any tripping or slipping to happen. So the least amount of things on the floor and in the way, the better, okay? It also helps me walk around and help y'all a lot faster when I'm not tripping over 5,000 athletic bags and whatnot, okay? So just make sure you keep that in mind on clay days. You come in, backpack, stuff at the front. Now, there are two different types of paper towels. Shout out to those that have been donating the white paper towels. I appreciate that. Love y'all. I would love some more. So, if you've got more to donate, I would love that so much because those are actually absorbent, unlike the ones we have provided by our school. So those will be used to wipe your tables, your chairs, and you can use them to wipe your hands. Okay? Anything white paper towels are used for cleaning up areas. Now, the lovely brown paper towels that we get are not for cleaning because honestly, they're not going to clean much of anything, as you have all experienced in your 12, 13, maybe 14 years of life, right? Those are not going to do much of anything. So what we do use them for is to keep our clay from drying out. So typically, you will take your projects, you'll wrap them in the brown paper towels, and wet them with the spray bottles. However, when I'm done with this video and I go over your project and we talk about the process, you are not going to actually need to wet your clay all the time because we actually need it to dry out every now and then for things to be put together. So you just want to make sure that you're listening to cleanup procedures day by day because it's going to change. But something that a lot of kids do is they drench their paper towels because they don't want their clay to dry out. But if you're putting too much water in your clay, you're actually going to make it really sloshy and it's going to fall apart. Do not treat your clay as if it is at Schlitterbahn. It does not need that much water, y'all. I cannot save your clay if it is just completely soaked, all right? So please make sure you're not going crazy with the water, okay? Now, We've already kind of experienced this, so again, as a reminder, your clay will go onto your assigned parking spot at the end of class. Make sure that you are taking care of all of that before you leave, okay? So make sure all your stuff is put together in its spot. So that's how you do cleanup procedures. Backpacks up front. Make sure you're wiping your table with paper towels. Projects get wrapped with the wet brown paper towels. They go in Ziploc bags, grocery bags when we get to that part, and then everything is a quiz grade. Your projects obviously need to dry out, so just be very mindful. You need to have patience for clay. You're not going to get to take home your projects for a very long time. Because we're doing glaze, it's going to have to go into the kiln again. So it's got to dry out, then it goes in the kiln, then we have to glaze it, then it's got to go in the kiln again. So you're not going to get your projects back till April, and I know that sounds crazy because we just got into February, but that's pretty much the process of clay. So just be very mindful. That is kind of a change from last year, but glaze is way more fun than acrylic paint. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but just know that it is needing to dry out. You're never going to need to touch or use the kiln, but because you have to know vocabulary for this unit, kiln is where your clay is cooked. It can get up to like 2,000 plus degrees. I'm the only one, as well as Mr. Reyes, we are the only ones that are going to touch it and mess with it, but this is what the inside looks like. So throwing that out there, a little fun fact. If you didn't know, that's what they look like. Now, last year, y'all made your animal pinch pot pencil holders. That's fun to say 5 times fast. That was the pinch pot technique. We're really not even going to use much pinch pot or even coil because in Art 2, we focus more on slabs. So yes, you can use these other techniques, but slab is our main focus for Art 2. And again, I'll talk more about what the project is in a minute, but I'm just throwing that out there. Okay. Speaking of things that I'll mention later, though, we are going to go over glaze stuff again after spring break when everything is fired because that's when we're going to paint them, okay? So just so you have an idea, though, when I'm done with this video and I'm done going over the project, I have the glazes out, and so you can actually see the colors today, and you can get an idea of maybe what you want to make based off the colors I have. You can't take glazes and like mix your own colors. So that is kind of a downside that you could do with acrylic paint. But glazes are liquid glass for those that are unaware. And you're going to need to paint 3 layers for it to show up. No more and no less. And the main thing, like I said, I'll mention it when we do our glazing for realsies. But you don't ever want to paint the bottom of your pieces with glaze because it's going to stick to the kiln shelf. And I can't save it. The only way it's coming out is with a hammer. So you just need to make sure that you don't glaze anything on the bottom. Don't make that part of your design. Only focus on things that cannot touch the shelf, okay? And again, we'll go over more of that later, but I'm very excited for us to use glazes. I'm not going to play this video within a video. We're not going to have a video inception moment here, but I am going to show this when I'm done with this video. And then we're going to talk about our project, okay?